Hey, what is going on, everybody? So in today's video, I am putting together a multi-part series on how I build the exhaust system for the Mercedes-Benz S Class W220. And I've gotten a lot of emails and questions about, how do you build it? And do you have any blueprints that you could send me? So I decided just to make like a whole series on, how I build the exhaust and everything like that. And so I'm going to start with the X pipe because that's the heart and soul of this exhaust system. And right here, you can see this is the flare part, and that's how I make the flare right there. And so that alone is a process. And, I think a lot of people don't understand everything that's involved in building an exhaust like this, especially for the S Class. And so I'm just going to kind of, clarify some things and bring this exhaust system and just how I build it to light. So you can see here, it's actually a 4-piece system, when I build this X pipe, and I'm building it out of stainless steel, which, kind of has its own just demands when it comes to welding and everything like that and fabrication. So you can see I'm using these flanges, which sadly, they're not welded to the exhaust, which would make this exhaust build so much easier, but they just act as anchors. And you can see there, I had to cut the pipe just to make the flare, and then I can put the flange on like that and then weld it back together, and then I weld the whole thing together like that, and then that's part 1 of 2 to building the X pipe. So you can see here's the second part right here, and this is going to be the exhaust end of the X pipe, or I guess if the exhaust is flowing from the engine all the way back out the car, then this is the direction of the exhaust flow out the car. So this is the second part of the X pipe, and this one's a little simpler. All I would have to do is just weld it. And once I weld both pieces together, it's going to look like this. And it's going to look like an X. And that's the whole point of the X pipe. And so you can see that these flanges, I'm going to have to also machine out the holes. These were the best flanges that I could get that matched up to the piping and offered the highest quality as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just clean all of the stainless. That's one thing about working with stainless and TIG welding, is that everything has to just be really clean. And what I'm using to clean the stainless is denatured alcohol. And if it's like super dirty and oily, then I'll use acetone, but denatured alcohol works really well for most applications. And I'm just getting it cleaned and ready and prepped. So you see already, just in building this exhaust, how much work goes into it. And so right here, I'm just going to speed everything up and, just kind of get everything prepped and clean for the welding. So it's not something like where you can just jump in and start welding. And these little vice grips I custom built. You can see those little flat bars I welded into the vice grips, which helps with these tacking bands. These are some pretty cool tacking bands, and they help hold the pipe together while I add some small welds so that the whole pipe can, stay together while I weld it. And it's really cool. It's really convenient. In the past, I've just had to hold it together or use some sort of table magnet, and these tacking bands they're like a lifesaver. So that's really cool. And you can see that's how they work. You just clamp them down to the pipe, and then in those little openings, you can see there's little kind of square openings, and that's where you tack. That's where you make your tack. And right now I'm just checking to make sure that there's no gaps between the two joints. And now here's some solar flux. And what solar flux is it's like a back purging without the gas. And so with stainless steel, again, you can't just weld stainless steel the way you can mild steel. So if you weld stainless steel without any kind of back purge protection, then the metal it'll bubble. It'll start looking like warts and, crystallize, and it gets really ugly and funny looking. And that's the metal just degrading, and it can lead to rust and, premature failure. And that's why you back purge. And so usually you'll back purge with gas, like some argon. But the thing is, if you have a small tank, then, like I used to have an 80 cubic foot tank, and I back purged and I went through that tank really fast. So solar flux is a good alternative to back purging if you don't have a large tank, or if you're not working for a company, where the boss is like, hey, use as much gas as you need, I don't care. So, or also if you're working on something mission critical, and it like sending a rocket into outer space or something like that, solar flux is a good alternative. And pretty much it does the same thing. It shields the back end from oxygen, because oxygen is what causes the stainless steel to sugar in the first place, where it kind of crystallizes and bubbles and looks like funny warts and everything like that. So the solar flux, it's a powder that you mix with alcohol, and you brush it onto the inside of the two connecting joints where you're going to be welding on the outside. And then as it heats up, it creates a gas, and that blocks out the oxygen, and that's, how it protects the stainless from sugaring. So now what I'm going to do is get everything ready, just giving it that final look over just to make sure that it's good to go. You can see there's the solar flux. It's dried. You have to wait for it to dry. And now I can start putting on my tacks. We're tacking everything together. And you can see right there, just going to do a little tack to get things started and letting the argon flow over it. So another thing, when you are welding stainless, stainless needs a lot of argon. Stainless in general is a very high maintenance material to weld. So, again, it's one of those things where, there's a lot that goes into this exhaust. So here I just going to go ahead and do my tacks all over just to make sure when I weld it, it doesn't deform. And I'm wiping it down one more time. Sometimes that solar flux can leak out. When it turns into a powder form, it can kind of squeak out a little bit, even though the joint is super tight. So just giving it that final wipe down before I weld and get everything nice and clean, because again, stainless steel, you really got to have everything clean. And of course, remove all flammable liquids before you start welding, and cleaning some TIG rods there. But I won't be using the TIG rods unless I just need to tie some stuff off. For this weld, for this exhaust system, I'm just going to fusion weld the entire thing, which is still going to be just as effective and just as strong. So you can see right there, just making sure everything is good to go before I start welding. And now I'm going to just hit it. So I'm just doing short burst. I don't have the luxury of one of those spinning jigs where you put the pipe in the jig and then it spins, and you can just weld the whole thing all at once. But I'm just doing short little runs, and mainly because I'm on a relatively small TIG torch or size cup. I think it's a number 12, and so I got to really keep that argon coverage contained to the cup size. Otherwise, the stainless it'll kind of oxidize on the outside. So that's one thing to stainless, to, making good welds, is to just take your time. And I have my amperage around 40 to 50 amps. I never go higher than 50 on 16 gauge stainless like this. And my CFH for a 12 cup is around 15 CFH, and then if I go to a larger cup than that, then it's like 25 CFH. That's what I found works best. So you can see there, I'm just going to speed everything up and get this thing moving right along. And I do use some filler rod just to tie things off. And you can see right there, just kind of tying things off and moving right along. And so, yep, just kind of making that finishing pass right there to connect everything together. And now that I'm done, I'm just going to let it cool down, and now we have a connected flare to one of our X-pipe pieces, one of 4 of the X-pipe. And then you can see right there, the welds look nice and good, and you can see that's what happens to the solar flux after it's been heated. It turns into like this glass, like kind of black obsidian glass. It's pretty cool. And you can see there's the welds right there, and everything looks nice and good. Not too much. I didn't overheat it or anything like that. And so now the flange is going to slide over like that, and the flare is going to hold the flange to the other side of the exhaust that connects to the engine. So, or should I say the downpipe? It's going to connect to the downpipe side of the exhaust. And then what I'm going to do now is weld the 2 pieces at the bottom and connect those together, and then cut the bottom. And I'll show you what I'm talking about right now. And so you can see this line right here. I've welded the bottom, I've tacked it together so that when I cut it, it won't separate. And I've marked a line, and this is a template that I use to cut just the right amount to get that nice sound coming out of the exhaust and the best airflow. And if you want to know that secret, sorry, I can't tell you. It's a trade secret. So yeah, that's what I do is I cut that bottom piece, and then I'm going to weld the 2 pieces together, and that's going to make the X-pipe. But you can see that's how I come up with the measurement. I just kind of measure a certain distance, and then I mark it like that. So in the next video, you'll see how I cut it and how I weld everything together. So thank you everybody for watching. If you like this content, please subscribe so that you can see the rest of this video series. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.